Coming up on today's episode of PSN, we connect with Culxtured, an organization spreading the word of parasport down south of the border. Paralympian and co-founder Dani Aravich is here. You won't want to miss it.
Welcome to Parasport Nation with Alex Smyth and Nathan Clement.
Welcome into Parasport Nation. I'm your host, Alex Smyth, as always, joined by co-host Nathan Clement. Nathan, there's been some big news out of the nation's capital having to do with the federal budget for 2025. It's got a lot of reaction from athletes and those in sports. What's your take on this? Because this hits pretty close to home for you.
Yeah, so from the federal budget, there's going to be very little to no sport funding increases or additions for Canadian athletes on the Olympic or Paralympic side, and it's frustrating, as right now we're in a time where obviously a lot of Canadians are feeling that hit with inflation, with a lot of things going on. But for us in sport right now, with the rising cost of living and being on a carding system that is increasing year by year, but it's extremely difficult to live off that alone. And a lot of athletes are having to live at home, live on their brothers, sisters' couches, or even work 2, 3, 4, 5 other jobs just to get by. Like, I have Olympic friends that are working as bartenders just to try to get by and training. And it's an extremely frustrating time when we have athletes who are amazing ambassadors for our towns, our communities, our province, and our country, not getting that support, not getting that funding that they need to be able to be that shining example of what it means to be Canadian on these amazing and big stages that we call the Olympics, Paralympics. And hopefully this sort of dialogue and a lot of outcry from so many athletes will be that changing transition that we need to really be a country that funds, that supports our athletes.
Yeah, it's just really unfortunate all around. And, there's been lots of conversations around the budget that, this is without getting too far into the world of politics, because we could do a whole episode on that. I don't want to go there, but it's just like there were decisions that had to be made, certain things that were very popular, not being funded as a result in this budget. And unfortunately, sport is one of those. And so athletes and NSOs and coaches and everyone involved, you're going to have to just figure out a way to kind of make ends meet without the support from the federal government, without some of these grants and programs that have been so vital, but also still very under-resourced at the same time, which is wild to think of. But, I mean, we've talked many times on this program just how little funding there actually is for a lot of para athletes, and how they have to make do with maybe $1,000 to $2,000 a month for living, food, training, all these different expectations and all these different needs, without really the financial ability to kind of cover all those bases. So sacrifices are made. People are working 2, 3 jobs, as you say, just to make the ends meet, while also trying to chase their Olympic and Paralympic dreams. So hopefully this is just a short-term change, in that going forward in the next year's budget and going forward to 2026 and beyond, there's a change that takes place. There's more funding available to help grow sport, not only where we are in the hubs in Ontario and BC, but across the country, because that really leads to a stronger country and community around sport and parasport.
Yeah, sport is a privilege at the end of the day. To be an athlete, to be able to represent my country and have funding for it, it's not lost on me that this is a gift, that this is something that I hold on to very deeply, because this is such a privilege to have this opportunity. But also at that end of the day, with so many athletes in media, in television, even in our communities, there's so much work that's being done to really bring the community up. A community center means a lot to a city, means a lot to a town. Just that access to sport, that access to programs, and that can really set up someone's life in a great direction where sport goes beyond just what we do when we're training, what we do when we're representing Canada at an Olympics or Paralympics. It has that way, as you said, to transcend communities and really bring them up, and just hopefully down the road that we can have that dialogue, we can have that conversation to get that funding, because there's so much more than just that annual income that comes to an athlete. It really has a ripple effect into the families, into friends, into sons, daughters, and kids that these athletes are trying to raise while working those jobs and trying to support there. And it really has that effect. And all we can do is just continue to have conversations, continue to shine a light on this news, but also progress that dialogue, whether that's in media, whether that's in governance, whether that's in all these different things, and even what we're doing now. And like having this show shines a light on parasport, shines a light, and there is some amazing stuff even happening down in the United States as well, really growing that conversation, growing that dialogue around parasport.
Yeah, Nathan, I couldn't have set it up better myself, because we are so thrilled to be joined by Culxtured co-founder and Paralympian Dani Aravich. Let's welcome her in now. Dani, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. And we're all in Canada right now, too. So this feels very fitting.
Absolutely. Now, you are one of the founders of Culxtured. For those who may not be familiar with Culxtured, can you give us a bit of idea what Culxtured is and it's all about?
Culxtured was founded by 4 Team USA Paralympians with the goal of changing the narrative when it comes to parasport. And we just saw in the build up to Paris that there wasn't enough talk around some of the important trials events or marquee things that got athletes to Paris. We knew there'd be coverage once they're at the Paralympic Games, but what about all that time in between? And we also felt like the broader sports media, if they did pick up on a Paralympic sport story, it was often told from a very inspiration lens rather than elite athleticism. And that is something we wanted to be able to take control over and, educate the media, educate athletes too, how to better advocate for themselves, and try to make sure that parasports becomes mainstream at the end of the day.
Dani, thank you so much for joining us. It's been absolutely amazing just to see the rise of Culxtured since it started in 2024. Did you expect it to become this big so fast?
I had no idea what to expect. We thought maybe this would just be a project for the 4 of us and it would die off. But it's been really special that athletes have been attracted to it and a lot of parasports fans. But I think our next venture really is trying to figure out how to reach the everyday sports fan. I think that, we will need some support from companies, from larger media companies, to try to make that possible. And my hope is we can get there through that support and that we can continue to make a real difference. But also, I think part of the entire goal of it is that it doesn't have to exist someday, that parasports media is integrated into every sports media. And just like women's sports, we're often siloed with different media companies for so long. Now, hopefully, major news outlets like Athletic and ESPN and NBC and all these places now are covering that so much more that it doesn't need to have its almost own bucket. And my hope is that that could exist for Paris someday, that we are just seamlessly integrated into the broader media landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously coming off of the broad media attention that Paris garnered, not only for the Olympics, but the Paralympics as well, then you kind of go into a bit of a recession of sorts because it's a non-Paralympic year. So there's less attention, there's less focus on it. But then as you ramp up towards Milano Cortina, okay, now attention starts to grow a bit more. Like, how have you kind of, and your team, focused the approach on capitalizing on the road to Milano Cortina as part of this plan to try to grow the awareness around parasport?
One of our big priorities was covering sports that also aren't Paralympic sports. So one that has been really cool is World Amputee Soccer and following their World Cups. Even though Paris just occurred, there was a track and field World Championship this past fall. There was a Paris Swim World Championship this past fall. And looking at Milan specifically, I think the hope is to really cover as much as we can of the World Cup season leading into the games, and knowing, that every nation will have a different qualification process, so on and so forth. So trying to highlight a bit more of those steps to the games. But it really does take the help of everyone, unfortunately, because our sports still aren't easily found on Google, or it's hard to find a competition schedule. We do need to rely on the help of athletes in different sports to educate us, so we can try to promote them. So if you are an athlete or you have knowledge of an upcoming, major sport, we'd love to hear about it. One hopefully we'll get to cover this week is in the United States. It's wheelchair curling team trials to qualify for their Milano Cortina team. And, there's a snowboard World Cup coming up, and Alpine's about a month out, and Paranordic's about a month out. So hopefully getting all of these things so that it's not just about the Paralympic Games, because as athletes, we know that is a piece of the puzzle, but there is, a full season leading into it of plenty of races, and you want to be excelling at those as well.
It's like, at least I found in my own journey, because with AMI and with Parasport Nation, I do research and finding kind of like a weekly update for what's going on in the parasport world. And it's so hard to find, but also like you're relying on Instagram, you're relying on all these different social media platforms to see where someone is. Maybe they're away and you're like, okay, why are they away? Then you do a quick Google search and you find like, oh, there's a track competition in Barcelona or something like that. How have you found, like, since Culxture started, finding those kinds of media stories? Has it been easier to find, or do you still think it's that kind of progress that's needing to happen over time?
I think the progress still needs to happen, very much so. And we've been very lucky that, for a while we had an excellent intern with us, but then she graduated and had to move on and get a real girl job. And she was excellent at sourcing some of these things online and creating a calendar for our website. And so that's something I'm hoping we can find again with a new intern, just to free up some of the co-founders' time, is that they can be really scouring the internet so we can create a calendar. But yeah, it's difficult. I think the only way, we've been able to find stuff is we come from 4 different sports, the co-founders. And so we're really lucky that we have those kind of touch points across summer and winter. And myself, having competed at summer and winter, I feel like my network of athletes I can rely on is quite a bit stronger too. But it needs so much work, and it needs to be coming from, from international federations, from NGBs, like from all these players, to make the information more accessible, because how can someone become a fan of something they can't watch?
Yeah, absolutely. Has there been a NSO or a international sport body that has been a strong example of, in terms of information and coverage around the parasport, that you point to as an example that maybe others can use as a framework to kind of make sure their information is getting out there the same way? Sadly,
not one is really jumping to mind, because I think, different sports still are governed by the IPC, and then different sports have moved under maybe their non-disabled counterparts at the IF level. And I think that there's still a long way to go in a lot of it in information sharing. And yeah, there's a lot of hiccups to work through too once para sports end up joining their respective maybe IFs of their Olympic side sport. So hopefully we'll see some more progress there. But I mean, the IPC has been, for a lot of the world championships, putting money behind broadcasting them on their YouTube channel. Like, I was able to watch para swimming while they were in Singapore this past fall through the IPC YouTube, and similarly track and field, they've often done that. So I'm hoping we'll see it, but I think a lot needs to come from sport governing bodies within nations. Like in the States, for example, a lot of our parasports are joining the respective national sport organizers for their sport. And I think, within the States, like USA Hockey's actually done a really, really excellent job for a long time with our sled hockey program and promoting our sled hockey program and giving them a lot of equitable time and equitable energy as well.
It's good to have like programs like Para Ice and there's just really take those steps forward. And one thing that you've done with Culxture that I really love to see is build that mentorship program, helping athletes have that voice, have that power to grow their brand, but also know the ins and outs of media in such a interesting world. How has that process been since starting the mentorship program?
It's been awesome to get to chat with young para athletes who are on their journeys and maybe in different points of their career than us. Like I've been particularly working with a para snowboarder who's hoping to make her first Paralympics, and something she really wanted to focus on was content and storytelling around her story, because it is so fascinating, and like her journey to snowboarding. And so we have been able to just stay in constant communication, bounce ideas off each other, because especially as all para athletes and a lot of Olympic athletes know, the few ways you can make money in this now is by being a content creator. And so if we can help them gain those skills, hopefully they can make enough money that they can do their sport full time, which is sad that we have to think that way, but it's the reality. And I hope we can continue it and just continue to find athletes who are motivated to build their respective brands, because the better brands each athlete has, the better it is for the movement. Like the more superstars we have, the more eyeballs get on parasport at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you just build and support each other, and you lift each other up within that community. Where did the name Culxtured come from?
Well, the X is there because there was a trademark issue. We were trying to think of something. We didn't want it to be like obvious that it was parasport, because ultimately, again, we hope integration can happen, but we really felt like sport is such a defining part of culture, human culture, societal culture. And, there's a lot of areas where disability inclusion needs to be thought about: education, the arts, the media, government, like so many different areas. But sports is our area of culture that we feel most strongly educated on, and we really do feel like this is the world's largest marginalized community, yet often the most forgotten in major conversations around any area of culture. And so that's where it kind of stemmed from. And then the X was because of a damn trademark issue.
see, you guys went with the subtlety. We just went with the blunt force approach with Parasport Nation. There is no doubt that what we're here talking about.
Yeah, no, which I respect. And I think too, sometimes the way we can also get more fans to parasport is to trick them, is to literally have maybe they go to an event and they anticipate seeing non-disabled athletes, and then suddenly there's a para exhibition and they get exposure to para that way. And that to me is, it's a tactic, and we're going to take it. And the more allyship I think we have from our Olympic counterparts or our non-disabled counterparts is only going to help us. And so hopefully we can get more fans there. And I wanted I think a little area of mystery to maybe that someone saw the merch or something like that and had some curiosity and started to explore.
I want to stay on the names. You have one of the best nicknames in sport, the biathlon Bandit. How did that start? What's the origins of the nickname?
Oh, it was just something my coach said off the cusp one time, and I was like, I like that. But I didn't feel comfortable saying it out loud until I felt like I was at a certain place in the sport, and that was last spring. I got my first individual World Cup podium, and I've only been in this sport for 5 years, and most of my competitors have been doing it for most of their life. And I just really loved it. I live in the Mountain West. I grew up a horseback rider. I love Western culture and cowboy kind of culture. And so it seemed fitting, and I wanted to be a little loud for my third Paralympics.
Now you're currently out in Canmore, Alberta, doing some training. How is the training and preparation going for you for Milano Cortina?
It's going really well. I had a really consistent summer. I still was able to do a little, since I stopped running track and field, I've started doing some trail running in the summers. I was still able to race that a little bit, but keep the focus on skiing. And overall, it's been consistent and good. And we're here in Canmore for 6 weeks. Our first World Cups are actually here for biathlon and cross-country skiing in early December. And it's only like an 8-hour drive from where I live in the States. So it's a very convenient place to get on snow. And Canada always has snow before us. And as an American, you just want to come to Canada right now because your dollar is so weak compared to ours that everything's like free here.
We're crying in Canadian money right now, but but you've been able to compete at 2 Paralympics in Tokyo in 2020 in athletics, in Beijing in Nordic skiing. Is there anything that you're looking forward to as you chase Milano Cortina in biathlon, as we're just over 100 days out of the games now?
I just want to have a really good season overall. Like, the games would be a cool way to end, but I just want to show my progress and my consistency heading into the games and be able to feel strong all season, like no matter whether it's the games or a World Cup. And it will be really cool to have friends and family. Honestly, I think it might be a little distracting because I am such a type A planner that I feel like I'm going to take on their travel burden and stress and want them all to be having a good time. And right now I think I have 23 friends and family coming to a tiny town in Italy that's not super accessible to an airport. But I feel very lucky that many people will get to come and see. But I do feel now my own internalized pressure for them almost that I need to put on a show.
Well, I mean, whatever motivates you to find success, you'll have a huge contingent there in Teresa. But for Culxture, is there, you're talking about your own goals in competing as in Milano Cortina. What are your goals for Culxture over the next, few years as we grow? Because obviously to get to the point where you no longer need Culxture, that's going to take a long time. That kind of progress is long term. But in the meantime, what goals do you have for Culxture?
I am hoping that we can build a pretty strong social following by the time we hit LA 28. And I am hoping that we can find ways to make money. That would be so cool. Whether it's through merch or partnerships, we're still trying to explore all that and figure out where our time is best suited. And basically show also, if we go to investors, if we pitch to a large media company, that there is ROI in these spaces and that it's not a charity case. And so that would be my dream.
We really see the ground, at least as a Canadian Paralympian myself, we see the groundwork being laid by people like you, Chuck Aoki, and really it's across the country. And it takes that time, it takes that work, but there is that happy ending coming. And it's going to be really exciting to see what happens in LA. But kind of shifting gears, you mentioned how amazing Canmore is, but is there any other dream locations that you would have to go cross-country skiing or Nordic skiing?
Japan. I've always wanted to ski in Japan, and they used to always have World Cups there, but prior to me starting the sport. And then, I don't know. We've done a lot of the Scandic nations. We go to Germany this year, Poland, which I've never been to. But yeah, I'll probably say Sapporo, Japan would be a pretty sweet place. So hopefully we get a World Cup there in coming years.
Japan is forever. Every single athlete we talk to, I swear, it's like the most popular destination for everyone. It always seems to be the best place to go. So, this has been so fun. Thank you so much, Dani. Like we've been big fans of you for a while, and what you and your team are doing. So it's great to finally have you on the pod. We can chat with you and cheer you on going forward.
Awesome. Well, so nice to meet you guys. And if I can ever connect you to more athletes in the States, or if we want to collab on content, we're down. So let's stay in touch, and we'll continue to try to change this world for our para athletes.
Absolutely. And that was our conversation with Dani Aravich, who is one of the co-founders of Culxtured and also a two-sport Paralympian preparing to go for her third while spending time in Cameroon. First off, I didn't appreciate the shot against our the cost and our dollar being so weak right now, but I will forgive it. I will forgive it. I'm not going to get mad. But the conversation was so great, and I love Dani and her energy, but so many parallels, Nathan, that you can literally draw between the work her and her team are doing south of the border, the work we're trying to do here with PSN, and it's just, all the issues they run across as well. You know it very well. Trying to source news, stories, stats from athletes, you got to reach out to them directly because that's the only way it happens.
Exactly. And she touched on so many points and so many parallels, as you mentioned, that we go through on a daily. And it's that fight, it's that progress, it's taking one brick at a time out of that wall to get to that other side. And what she's doing with the work with her and that whole team it's really beautiful to see, because it's having that conversation, it's identifying that there is a problem, and that's how Culxture started. There is a problem with how paramedia is seen, how paramedia is observed, and really growing it from there with mentorship programs, doing talks, and just getting out there and showing the possibility of parasport around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just also appreciate how they want to continue to grow and raise the awareness to the point that they are no longer needed. Like that's about like, I'm not quite there yet. I like to be needed. I want to have a presence at the end of the day, but I understand what she's saying with that, where it's all integrated together. It is, and this is something that Heidi Peters had talked about, some of the other great advocates and athletes that we've had on the program through the years. It's like, we just want it to be standard sport coverage. It just happens to be parasport instead of just your mainstream sports that you're talking about. We want the same amount of energy and conversation that happens for the NFL, NBA, happening when it comes to a biathlon competition or national trials for something. Like, have that same kind of through line of excitement, of passion, of detailed and nuanced conversations. I think that is an exciting future to work towards.
It definitely is, and it's a step-by-step process. It's going to take time, but when you have people like Dani, when we have shows like what we're doing, and even media like Culxtured, each step by step, and you can even see with Trailer Park Sports Network and Will Stevens what he's done to highlight parasports. There's people really starting to lay that groundwork, and I think it's an exciting road ahead, because it's that transition, as Dani said, from showing the high performance competitive nature that these sports are, and not just the disability. And I feel like with what CBC did in Paris was that step in the right direction, but it just takes more media companies, it takes more media brands to jump on. Because I think for Milano Cortina, we talked about there's only 6 broadcasters that are going to be showing stuff outside of the OBS, the Olympic Broadcasting Service. So it's really pushing them to get more involved, more engaged. And I often see, right now I'm subscribing to a streaming platform. I'm not going to say which one, but it's one of the 2 in Canada. I'll let you figure out. It may match my shirt, but they have so much added content on there. Yet I haven't seen much in the way of para. They did show tennis during the wheelchair tennis during the US Open, but other than that, there hasn't been really anything. So it's going to these networks, it's going to these broadcasters and saying, hey, you have a space, you have subscription platforms, you have a plus. You should be getting the wheelchair rugby tournament that's happening next week in Czechia, and like all this other stuff going on there on their platforms, because there is a space, there is a platform for these sports.
Absolutely. And, like a platform, you have a voice, but unfortunately, we could continue this conversation all day, but we are out of time. So for you at home, thanks for watching, listening. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Parasport Nation. Like and subscribe to the channel to follow us now.